Oh my god.
Hello. This is AJT500 slash Talented Track 98 slash Hello East Wonderwise slash Hilo. And for this video, we're back with another one of these rambling, talking videos. Excuse me, because this one does not have any type of script whatsoever, whereas at least the last one had notes. So this is probably going to be even more rambly, but it's also probably going to be a lot shorter than the last one. But you guys had a lot of good reception from the last video, so I decided I was going to try and do another one of these videos for the axe again, because I have upgraded my attack axe. I'm still working on the special one, but it's still at the 15. Well, technically the special one is now upgraded, but it is still at awakening level 15. So I haven't finished the last 5 awakening levels. I'll finish that probably the end of this weekend, but I don't think it's going to be really relevant for this video because if you saw anything from the last video, you know that I recommended leaving that at 15 because at the moment we cannot go past that damage cap. We will be capped on that damage for the time being. So it's not really that applicable to anything right now. So I don't think it'll really affect anything in this video. All that aside though, thanks for the good reception on that video. I will probably do another video like this when we get PNS, I guess. Because, as you can see from the intro and probably from the banner today, water got Sheik Gabriel. And for once, I actually don't hate water. If you don't know, most people on YouTube probably don't know this, but I'm not the biggest fan of water. I don't like water as an element. I just don't think it's really that fun. All my biases and agendas out of the way. The one reason why I'm actually happy that water got this weapon today is because I was sitting on this banner, waiting for this banner to come out, because I just wanted to see what water would get. Because, as you all know, before now, water and earth were the two elements that had neither a Kaguya dagger or a PNS. So I really wanted to see whether or not water got PNS, Kaguya dagger, or something new. Because I think whatever water got, earth will probably get later. Which is probably, it's looking like PNS now. So, PNS is probably coming. Don't get your hopes up because we're playing Earth, boys. I mean, look how long we've gone without a weapon now. It could be next summer before you actually get it. Although it's probably on New Year's. But it could be a while, so don't get too hyped about it. But we're probably going to get PNS. But what I want to talk about now is the current state of Earth right now. So you can kind of treat this as a time capsule of sorts with the weapons that we have now, because it'll probably be invalidated as soon as we get PNS. But okay, so I have 3 grids on the screen right now. They all have pretty similar stuff, just slight differences when it comes to what's giving cap up and what weapons are used slightly. And what I'm going to title these from left to right is just, the left one is the consistent build, the middle one is the stable build, and the third one is inconsistent isn't really a good word, more like volatile. It's the volatile build. So from left to right, again, it's consistent, stable, volatile. From left to right. Now, what do I mean by this? So what I've found through my own testing and asking a friend from my old crew to test this as well in fire, although fire, I've noticed that the different LEs are different. They have slight differences because of what weapons they already had in their overall sphere of an element. There are slight differences. So I'm mostly just going to be talking about Earth, but I just want you to know that I've been looking into other LEs as well. I've also been looking at it in dark as well, just to see kind of how things will line up. But I'm only really going to talk about Earth in this video, because again, I'm the Earth guy. So what do I mean by these different types of builds? So what I'm finding right now is that even though a grid may be mathematically highest, as in this, it says that, you know, the estimated weak point is this amount of damage does not necessarily mean, even against that element, that weak element, that it will do the most damage throughout the fight. And the biggest variance for that right now is crit. For Earth, it's crit. And what do I mean by that? So, if we look at the consistent build, which is the far left one with the 2 axes, what this has is this has cap up coming from the dagger from 1 axe and the Baihu claw. So it is max damage cap, and it has the normal attack damage cap from the dagger as well. They all have the same amount of normal damage cap, because they all have that same dagger in each one of them. So what do I mean when I say that this is the consistent build? The thing about this is this build does consistently hit the highest numbers. And what I mean by that is, let's say that this build you hit 2 mil autos with this build on your MC. You will always, assuming you have the exact same debuffs, and by the way, I'm also going to have a showcase of 3 different Tefnuts all side by side with these different builds to show you what I mean afterwards. But let's just say you do 2 million autos, in the exact same scenario, you have the exact same debuffs and buffs at all times. You do 2 mil autos, you will always do 2 mil autos with this build. There isn't much variance, because of the simple fact of this build has absolutely no crit. So it is purely just going off of damage. And this is probably kind of obvious, but I guess the point I'm trying to make here is, me personally, while I was making these weapons, these Revan weapons, I was chasing after the highest number. But it wasn't until I got to the top that I realized that I'm in a way kind of gimping myself, because I don't have the potential to go any higher. That 2 mil, if I'm hitting that 2 mil consistently, that is the highest possible I can hit. Assuming, I don't add any extra buffs or debuffs into the equation. Assuming I have max buffs and max debuffs that I can get in a fight. It will always hit that exact same number over and over and over again. You can never go higher, because there is no crit in this grid. So even though, yes, it will hit generally like on the weak point, like if when you get a weak point or a crit hit on a weak point, this grid may hit 2 mil and the other 2 may hit 1.9 or 1.8 or 1.95 or something like that. This one may hit higher than the other 2 on weak points, but it will lose out as soon as the other grids crit. As soon as the other grids crit, it will start to fall behind, because the crits will put those grids higher than this one can possibly ever go, because it is stuck at that 2 mil. Now, to expand on that, let's move on to the consistent grid in the middle. The consistent grid in the middle is kind of something that we've been using already, where we have the 2 Alex daggers. And the 2 Alex daggers will give us our 10% of our damage cap, and the axe, the special axe and the special dagger will give us the last 10%. And by the way, for the last grid, for the consistent grid, you were getting from one of the axes, the special axes, you're getting 5% damage cap. The dagger's giving you 5%, and the Baihu claw is giving you 10%. So you're capped in that grid too. So in this grid, like I said, the 2 daggers give you 10%, and then the Sieg dagger gives you 5, and then the Sieg axe gives you another 5. So you're capped here. Now for the I forgot what I called it already. The first one was the consistent. The second one was what, standard? What did I even call it? I already forgot. This one isn't the first grid. It's not the first grid. This is the middle one. Okay, the middle one with the 2 daggers is what I'm talking about now. So with this grid, you now have the potential to crit, and you have a decent amount of chance to crit. This is, again, all these grids I'm also looking at single-sided. I guess this could change a lot more potentially if you were running double Titan, because then your crit would go up with more, crit weapons. But this is all these tests were done with Bubs / Titan. So But still, this one has more crit because it has 2 daggers in it. Now, the fact that we have introduced the ability to crit immediately puts this grid at potentially more higher damage than the first grid, because we now have the potential to crit. And let's go back to our damage example before. If the first grid could hit consistently 2 mil, 2 mil, 2 mil, 2 mil, 2 mil, over and over again, this grid may hit 1.9, 1.95 on a normal hit. But then when it hits a crit, it jumps drastically. You may jump up to like 2.5, 2.6, 2.7, something like that. Like just for an example, you may jump up much higher. And if you crit even somewhat consistently, obviously it's RNG based, but if you crit even somewhat consistently, this grid will consistently do more damage than the first grid because you have that potential to crit, whereas the first grid is completely stagnant. So that makes this grid sorry, this makes this grid in the middle much more it has a higher ceiling than the first grid. It has a higher ceiling. Its base might be lower, but its ceiling can go higher. And you'll see from the videos that I show you that generally they're pretty much the same. They're pretty much the same. I think in the places that I was looking at is I was looking at like turn 7 and then the end. And I think by those different turns in each run, I think it was like a 1% variance. It's very low. It's very low. But it's just there is a difference. There is a difference with the crit. And you know, if we had a weapon that was as good as Alex Dagger in terms of giving us damage cap, but also had a lot higher crit, the crit could be a bigger play. You know, a bigger and better thing to slot in these grids. Now, the third build, let's move on to that. For the third build, we have 1 dagger instead of 2. And now we have introduced an attack axe instead of a special one. So now we have damage cap coming from our Alex dagger, from our Siegfried dagger, which is 5 and 5, which is 10. And then we've reintroduced the Baihu Claw to get us another 10 to bring us up to 20 to max our damage cap again. So that's the reason why the attack axe is now entered into this one, because we're already damage cap. We don't need another another special axe. Although now that I'm thinking about it, in this grid you could potentially I don't know if it what I'm thinking about is maybe the special axe in this scenario, if it was upgraded, that normal attack damage may be better than the attack axe, but I doubt it. I want to say I doubt it. I want to say that 4% normal damage cap is probably not as good as all the stats you're getting from the attack axe. So I'll just leave it the way it is. So with this build, as opposed to the other two, this one is the volatile build, because this one essentially has the highest potential damage you can get. It has the highest potential damage you can get because this one kind of combines the two builds. It has the highest amount of damage you can put through by having the attack axe, but it also introduces the ability to crit with the Alex dagger. So now you potentially can go even higher with that ceiling. So again, with this one, you may be hitting, this one is probably closer to like 1.9 in our example, 1.95 in our example. And then when it crits, it will probably go up to like, it'll probably go up more consistently to like 2.6, 2.7, 2.8, stuff like that with this grid, because it has more damage behind it, if that makes sense. But the likelihood of you critting is much less than the middle grid. And what you'll see in the video for this as well, I'll have all the videos after this again. What you'll see in the video for this one is that this one actually pushes 1% ahead of both of the other grids. So it's actually, I think it's like 2% ahead of the base consistent grid. It's 1% behind or ahead of the middle grid. But the issue that also comes up with this one, and another reason why I call it volatile, is because it actually pushes Tefnut to 50% before the other ones do. On that 6th turn, it pushes Tefnut to 50%. And what that does is it actually gives her a different trigger than she would have gotten if she had just taken the 51 or 52% on that turn. So this is kind of like a Hrace Velger Bub's Bullet versus Belial Bullet situation, where with water players they will optimally you would want Bubs and Belial bullets, because if you get into something like Guild War, you may not want to unexpectedly push something with a Bubs bullet that you don't want to push, like a trigger in a Guild War fight while you're trying to burst consistently. So you may take Belial bullets in that situation to make it more consistent, so that you don't burst into that other thing accidentally. That's what it reminded me of. So that's why I call this one volatile, because its damage can spike higher than the other two, but that damage could also, for one, it's inconsistent because you have so little crit in there that when you get a crit, it's very volatile just in and of itself. But that crit damage can also be so high that it can push you into things that you may not want to go into. So that's what I want to talk about with these grids. Is pretty much, like I said, this is all a time capsule. And let me tell you again, with PNS, assuming we get PNS, what I think will probably happen, because I think the one thing that can beat out crit variance is that supplemental damage on PNS. I think that supplemental damage on PNS can beat out crit damage. Plus, whatever the resonator is, I feel like the resonator will resonate with at least something to push it over crit. So my guess would be that you probably end up doing 2 PNS, and then either a special dagger or an attack dagger, and then either a special axe or an attack axe. Not both of the same. And that's also going to go into my next point. Let me pause now because I've already been talking for almost as much as my recording could go. So give me one moment. Okay, so what I was getting into with that last video, or last part of the video, nobody said that. Last part of the video is what I want to talk about is the difference between the axes and the daggers in terms of stats. So what I want to look at, I'm going to swap back to the game here, is right here in the grid. So right now, this is my hexagrid in a it's just normal stuff. I don't know what I was going to try to say there, but there's just this normal stuff. It's normal stuff here, and this is a bit updated from what I did in the last video, because at the time I didn't have an axe that was all the way maxed out yet. So this is a bit different, but one thing that I want to tell you is that it doesn't actually matter if you, well, let me go back a bit. If you are using only a single dagger and a single axe in the grid, if you are using only a single one of both, it does not matter which one you use, you will end up with the exact same stats, as long as they're different. Now, what do I mean by that? What I was coming from was from the old video when I was showing you all my stuff in this grid. Before, I had a special dagger and a special axe, and I thought to myself today, well, wait, maybe I should change that instead, because I was over capping on regular damage cap with that. So what I thought about is I was gonna swap the first thing I thought about was swapping my dagger from the special to the attack dagger instead, and I was gonna leave the special axe in there. My damage went down immediately because my special axe is still not finished and it doesn't have the normal damage cap yet. So that immediately, when I realized that, I immediately swapped back to my special dagger, and I thought, okay, well, my attack axe is finished, so let me put that in instead. And when I did that, obviously my damage went back up. But the bigger thing the thing that brought to my head was I was wondering, okay, now that I'm in this situation, what would happen if I was the other way? So if I kept my original game plan of going with a special axe and a attack dagger, and what I found actually surprised me, because it made me realize that Side Games actually thinks about this stuff a little bit more than I thought they did. So I'm going to bring up this notepad document right here. And this is going to show you the HP and attack of the weapons. And what I mean is these two numbers right here, because the awakening values will always be the exact same on the special daggers and special axes, and then the attack daggers and the attack axes. Those will always be the same. So those don't matter. I'm just talking about these HP and attack values. I wanted to see if one setup, like if I were using the special dagger and the attack axe, if that would give me more attack over the attack dagger and the special axe, or more HP. If one setup would give me more HP or more attack, because I thought what I thought was that the attack axe would give me more attack, and then the special axe would end up giving me more HP. That's what I thought. And by the way, all these numbers, they only matter once you get these red effects around your weapon. So once you get past that step that requires the 200 Sieg mats, once you get past that step and you get your weapon looking like this, when it gets to MK2, essentially, it doesn't matter about the awakening. Once it gets to MK2, that's when you'll end up with these stats, right? Okay, so all that out of the way. My point is, with this Word document, or this Notepad document, what I want to show you is that it does not matter which one you use, as long as you use one type of awakening on one weapon and the other type of awakening on the other. So what do I mean by that? If we look at the attack dagger and the special dagger, you'll see that the difference in these is 50 HP difference and 300 attack difference. If you look at the attack axe and the special axe, the numbers, obviously their numbers are higher, they're different, but they're also the exact same. It's 50 HP difference and 300 attack difference. So what this means is that it doesn't matter if you take an attack dagger and a special axe, or you take a special dagger and an attack axe. As long as you use one weapon that has one type of awakening, and then the other weapon has the other type of awakening, it will be the exact same stats. It will be the exact same stats on both ways. So it does not matter which weapon you have. Now, that being said, personally, if you're still going in a priority system, personally, I would still recommend going for the special type dagger first, because pretty much I'd go with my same priority system from the last video, which is special type dagger first, then an attack one, then a special axe just to 15. You can upgrade it if you want, but only keep it at 15, and then go to an attack axe and take that one all the way to 20, and then come back to your special axe and finish that one. That's what I think you do if it's just a priority system of making them. But this is just to show you that when you have all four of them maxed out, it does not matter which combo of the two you use, the stats will always be the exact same. So all that out of the way. that's one thing I want to show you with this grid. The other thing is, if we get PNS, when we get PNS at this point, when we get PNS, where does it go? Again, like I said with the old video, and now what I'm kind of regurgitating in this one, is I think that you will drop the Alex daggers. I don't think it's worth keeping one Alex dagger for the volatile nature of, and this is the reason why I want to go over the first grids before I got into this, because those were kind of like the baby steps up to this. Now, again, I don't think it's worth keeping just one dagger for the volatile nature. Maybe if our dagger was more like a Shalim axe, where it has like more HP or more crit, maybe, but I don't think so. I don't think you keep a dagger. I think you just replace the daggers. You replace the daggers with the two PNS. You replace the two daggers with the PNS. You keep a special dagger or special axe, whichever one. So that would put you at, technically that would put you at 14 from the 2 PNS, and then plus 5 from the special dagger. Now at that point, technically, you would be at 19% damage cap with the 2 PNS. Now the question is, do you want to keep a Kame weapon or a Lobelia weapon here, or do you want to swap it for something like one of these? Do you want to swap it for something like one of these, just to have more damage? Because technically, this is only going to give you 1% damage cap at that point. Again, like I said in the last video, I think they saw all this stuff coming, and that's the reason why they're saying we're going to give you stuff once you pass the cap. Because I think once we get that update that we can pass the cap, and we get benefits for passing the cap, the Kame weapon probably just stays at that point. It probably just stays. Because that extra, 4% damage cap that you would have, you would get some type of benefit for it. So it probably just stays. So it would probably look like that then. That would be my guess. And then, again, in this slot, you would have, whatever is the opposite of the dagger. So you always just have a special awakening one, and you have an attack awakening one. And that, again, that rule is only specifically if you're using only 2 of these things in your grid. Only 2, so you're using one axe and 1 dagger. That's when that rule applies. But yeah, I think that's kind of how it goes. Again, PNS. Oh boy. Okay. But yeah. I think I'll leave it at that for right now. I don't really see any more changes. I think I kind of see the full scope of everything now that I've finished my attack axe. I'm going to work on, like I said, I'm going to work on my special axe now and probably finish that this weekend. But I don't think anything will change with that for the time being. But again, all of this is kind of still just a time capsule anyway, because I think all of it changes once you get PNS. But I just want to show right now that this is kind of what we're dealing with in Earth. Earth is kind of weird because we kind of get a little bit of crit on the Alex daggers, but we're already taking Alex daggers for the damage cap anyway. So it's kind of like, it's kind of wonky. In my opinion, I think you just stick with, it's not there in the paint. I think you stick with the middle grid. I think the middle grid is probably the best one. It's probably the best one because it has the potential to have more damage than the first grid, but it's more consistent than the last grid. So I think you stick with the middle one. And another point I wanted to make with this is just the fact that you have to actually test this stuff. Unless you're smarter than me. You might be smarter than me and you could just see, okay, well, I'm going to have to calculate the crit and blase. But for me, I have to test this stuff because for me, what I'm looking at is the number in the game. And the number in the game tells me something different than what is actually being reflected in the game. Because there is variance to these things. So, I just wanted to show that. Again, thank you so much for the support on the first video. That's awesome. I'm glad you guys like these rambly type videos. Again, I don't know how much I can actually do of these because there's not a ton of new stuff, and Earth is just the one Ellie that I'm super passionate about and I know the most about because I just have all the freaking stuff. And it's not like we get like a ton of stuff, but I may make an updated video when we get PNS or whatever we get next. But yeah, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it, even though it may not be something that's super common from me. With all that being said, now I'm going to show you the tests for each one of these grids, and I'll show you again the type of different variances that I was talking about before. And for these tests, I specifically used Arulumaya as my last person because Arulumaya would have the least, pretty much Arulumaya gave Veil so she wouldn't get debuffed, and and she could make the fight consistent as possible because I take off her S4 so that she doesn't have any random debuffs. So it's the exact same all the way through, as close as physically possible, right? But really, it's because she had Veil. She had Veil, and the rest of her kit was consistent. So I took Arla Maya. But that's the reason why for this testing. So you'll see this. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and I hope you all enjoyed. Bye bye. Okay, so I really love my addendums. Apparently, one last thing I want to bring up. I talked about this in the special grid for how PNS would be introduced. Or not the special grid, in the extra grid for how PNS would be introduced. But for standard grids, I believe it's going to look like this. I think maybe potentially every element may look like this, where you have a free main hand. You can do essentially whatever you want there. Now, if you do main hand any of the weapons that are in this grid, things may change. You may be able to add in extra damage or cap up in some regard. But I'm just gonna, for right now, keep it as basic as possible because we're getting far into theory crafting stuff here. Right now, free main hand, 3 resonator weapons, Opus Ultima, then pretend that these daggers are both PNS, and then you have 2 Revans, one of which is an attack awakening. Well, sorry, you have 2 Revans. One is the first type of Revan, so in this example, the Sieg Dagger. And then the second one is the second generation of weapons, in this case, the Sieg Axe. But you always have one of each, and then one will be attack, and one will be special. It does not matter which one it is. It doesn't matter which is which. They just need to be opposite, and they need to be, you know, one needs to be the Axe, and one needs to be Revan 1, and one needs to be Revan 2. That's all I'm gonna say. But that's what I think the grid will look like once we have PNS. I really wish I didn't main Earth for once. I really wish I didn't main Earth for once, because I'm like the one dude who's cheeky talking about this, and I got the one Ellie that doesn't have PNS. So I can't really prove anything. But if anyone else in any other Ellie sees this and can test that with their own element, you know, for example, light, if you do this and you take Ura main hand. Fire, if you do this and you take Higurashi or the spear main hand. Dark, if you take a Rashkukul main hand. Wind, if you take the spear main hand. Water, if you take well, Praise Felgers. All kind of weird because that one has supplemental. So water players, back away. Water players, go do your own thing. Go stack 4 Wombrellas or whatever. Any other Ellie though, if anybody else has this and sees this video, could you test that for me and see? Because it's going to be a really long time before I can farm. My next one will be light because light's like my secondary. But it's going to be a very long time before I can farm Cosmos to the point of getting all the Revans like how my Earth is. So I won't be able to test that for a while. But yeah, if anyone else can test that, that's kind of my running theory right now. Is I think that the grid, the general grid setup will be a free main hand, 3 resonator weapons, Ultima Opus, 2 PNS, and then 1 Revan weapon of the first series, 1 Revan weapon of the second series. One of them needs to be special, and the other one needs to be attack. That's what I think. That's what I think will net you probably the highest damage. And I guess it could kind of change with, what is it, light? No, not light. Water, dark, and wind. I think water, dark, and wind can't do this. Or it may not be optimal to do this, because water, dark, and wind, well, I mean, maybe it does, but their special is kind of weird because it's like CA damage instead of normal attack damage. So it may not apply. It may really just be maybe an earth, light, and fire thing. Really, it might just be an earth, light, and fire thing. So yeah, if there's any light or fire players out there that can test that, please test that. Test that type of grid setup and see how it works. Because I think that might be the way to go going forward. But again, I'll have to wait until my Shrieking Ellie gets to BNS, because we're dead last. Uriel better be tight, by the way. If we get Uriel on New Year's, I better see this dude going fisticuffs and brawling. I want to see him going one-on-one with dudes, just like how he went one-on-one with Sariel and what makes the sky blue whatever number. I freaking love Uriel, dude. I love Uriel, so that character better be freaking amazing. Anyway, that's all I gotta say for real this time. Now here's your test. All right, bye bye.